Well, hello, happy Tuesday. It is 48 Digital host A.J. Wuest bringing you another Before the Four, where I take you through our top news stories and then some before the 4 o'clock newscast. I want to thank you for watching and spending a little of your Tuesday afternoon with me here at the 48 Now desk. Whether you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, or our app or website, I greatly appreciate you. What is the best quality someone can have? That is today's 48 Facebook question of the day, and make sure you stick around for the end of today's Before the Four to wait for our Facebook fun segment. You're certainly not going to want to miss that. Some of you all had some really great responses, and I just cannot wait to show them all off. But with all of that out of the way, I think it is about that time we jump into today's top stories. And starting things off in Morgan County, where the trial for an accused murderer began today. Frederick Rogers, who you are currently seeing on screen, and John Michael Legg are currently accused of killing 7 at a home in Valormerso Springs. 48's Matthew King is there in court today, and he will be bringing you updates on day 1 of the trial coming up at 4. And now in Limestone County, where an Elkmont man was recently indicted by a grand jury on several sex crime charges. According to court documents, Dakota Vaughn is charged with 3 counts of first-degree rape, 1 count of sexual torture, and 1 count of sexual abuse. It's currently unclear if there were more than 1 victim, but 4 of the charges state the victim was under the age of 12. Certainly a very sad situation there. And now out in the Shoals, where a new billboard hangs regarding a recent Florence City Council decision to not denounce what many are calling a racist monument dating back to the days of the Confederacy. As you can see on screen right here, the billboard paid for by Project Say Something calls out Councilman Jimmy Oliver and Blake Edwards for voting against denouncing the Florence monument. The billboard also reads, "Florence deserves better." And 48's Aria Pons will be bringing you all more details on this billboard, along with Project Say Something, also coming up in our evening newscasts. So make sure you stick around for that story as well. Now in some national news, the first day of the Democratic National Convention was, of course, yesterday in Chicago. And it certainly kicked off last night in a very dramatic way, with President Biden passing the torch to his Vice President, Kamala Harris, who took his spot at the top of the ticket when he dropped out of the race. NBC White House correspondent Peter Alexander was inside the United Center with more.
Overnight, a passing of the torch. President Biden delivering a rousing endorsement of his vice president.
Are you ready to elect Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, President and Vice President of the United States?
Praising Harris as she tries to make history as America's first woman president.
Like many of our best presidents, she was also vice president.
The president, supported by his family, becoming emotional after he was introduced by his daughter Ashley and receiving rapturous applause from the crowd. During the speech, the president touched on his decision to leave the race last month amid pressure from Democrats.
I love the job, but I love my country more. And all this talk about how I'm angry at all those people who said I should step down, that's not true.
President Biden also making a point of praising Harris while touting their record together.
We've had one of the most extraordinary 4 years of progress ever, period. When I say we, I mean Kamala and me.
Earlier, the vice president honored her political partner in a surprise appearance at center stage.
Joe, thank you for your historic leadership. We are forever grateful to you.
Among the night's other marquee names, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, whose own presidential hopes were dashed by Donald Trump.
We put a lot of cracks in the highest, hardest glass ceiling. On the other side of that glass ceiling is Kamala Harris.
Zeroing in on the former president.
So it is no surprise, is it, that he is lying about Kamala's record? He's mocking her name and her laugh. Sounds familiar.
For his part, Mr. Trump, campaigning yesterday, was asked whether he'd accept the results of the election.
If it's going to be a fair and free election, the answer is absolutely I will.
President Biden in his address also attacking Mr. Trump.
You cannot say you love your country only when you win.
Warning against what he called clear and present threats to democracy.
Democracy has prevailed. Democracy has delivered. And now democracy must be preserved.
The president reflecting on his legacy, repeating a song verse he used in his inaugural address.
Let me know in my heart, when my days are through, America, America, I gave my best to you. I made a lot of mistakes in my career, but I gave my best to you. For 50 years.
Well, thank you, Peter. Gotta love election years. And staying on the topic of the presidential election, NBC recently asked young voters in key battleground states what issues are motivating them in this election. Take a listen.
The earth is on fire!
Climate change has become a deal-breaker issue for many young Americans. 40% of voters under 35 say they will only vote for a candidate who prioritizes climate action, something young voters have been saying since the last election.
I personally am very moderate. I don't consider myself a Democrat or Republican, but I am here because climate change is the most important priority.
I want a livable future. I want green jobs. I currently go to George Washington University, and I'm worried about the job future.
This new poll, conducted by a Democratic polling firm of registered voters in 5 swing states, showed that across the political spectrum, supermajorities of young voters demand or at least prefer candidates who prioritize climate change.
Yeah, there is enough voter support, not just among Democrats, but also among Republicans, to force politicians to lead on climate. And not out of the goodness of their hearts, but because it will become the easiest way for them to win elections. But the burden is upon us as voters first, because if we don't show up, there's no reason for politicians to appeal to our priorities.
And that's the goal of the nonpartisan Environmental Voter Project. Don't change anyone's mind, just try to get young, climate-motivated Americans to vote.
And that impact could be huge. Tufts University projects that Gen Z and millennials will have a combined 104 million eligible voters this fall.
Being able to say, hey, we're going to win over and try to appeal to voters who care about climate, that does matter. It might not be the number one issue, it might not be number 3 or number 4, but in our close and polarized elections that we end up having, every demographic ends up mattering.
One influential climate action group, the Sunrise Movement, frequently organizes protests to communicate that jobs, inflation, and climate change aren't actually separate issues.
Young people want action, so it's beyond a party, and that is why we want to make sure that both nominees know and hear our demands.
I would love to see a bill that really puts forward how tackling climate change can decrease our cost of living and improve our lives. I think that includes housing, education, and jobs first and foremost. Those are really key costs right now, and also ways that we can improve people's lives.
The survey also asked voters which issues will actually get them to the polls this fall. And when they made that distinction, climate change rose above economic issues, with 78% saying climate is motivating them to vote. In Los Angeles, I'm national climate reporter Chase Kane.
Well, thank you. Now a story heading back to local news, a story you may have missed. 48 Sarah Grace Kennedy this morning reported on a story out in Lawrence County. The Boxwood Slave Quarters is currently getting restored. The small building near Hillsboro is one of the last former slave quarter buildings in the entire state of Alabama. It was built by slaves in 1854 and was used to house the plantation's cook and her family. So far, the Lawrence County Preservation Society has replaced the original floor. Now they are working to replace the doors and refurbish the old shutters. Wendy Hazel, the president of the Lawrence County Preservation Society, said it is important that this piece of history is restored so future generations can learn about a dark time in America's history.
Help them to understand what it was like then. This is 2 rooms, but families lived here, you know. So it's not all about everybody's got their own bedroom and everybody's got their own bathroom. That's not the way it always was. And so this is a good example of how people lived.
Very true, thank you. And now another story you may have missed. The CWA union in 9 different states is currently striking telecommunication company AT&T. 48's Nick Ballinger spoke with CWA members who tell us the company they're just not playing ball. Nick Ballinger has the details.
The drivers in downtown Huntsville honking to show their support for striking AT&T workers. Around 300 North Alabama members of the Communication Workers of America, or CWA, have been on strike since Friday.
There's some mandatory things that we have to bargain with the company, and they've just quite honestly been unwilling to do that.
CWA's contract ended in late June, and leaders have been negotiating with AT&T since then. Mustafa Hassan, president of local CWA union, claims AT&T isn't bargaining in good faith.
They don't have a true decision maker at the bargaining table. And that's someone who, when we're talking and you're making a proposal, that you can say yes or no to.
But a spokesperson for AT&T says, "We have been engaged in substantive bargaining since day one and are eager to reach an agreement that benefits our hardworking employees. This action needlessly jeopardizes the wages and well-being of our employees." The strike isn't just in North Alabama. These are photos from across 9 states that include over 17,000 strikers, leaving AT&T without technicians, customer service reps, and repair workers. A source from inside management at AT&T tells me they're being sent to surrounding states to take the place of these workers temporarily.
I don't think they're too comfortable with doing our job. You know, their management, I don't know how skilled they are.
But Hassan tells me they'll do anything it takes to get a fair deal.
We have families to take care of, so we have that great responsibility. However, we know the seriousness of this contract for our members.
Nick Ballinger, 48 News, on your side.
Well, thank you, Nick. Hopefully the situation can be resolved as quickly as possible. Thank you. And we have a breaking news story. We just pushed it. If you have the 48 digital app and you have those push notifications turned on, you just got this story. The Crestwood Medical Center CEO has resigned. The chief executive officer of Crestwood Medical Center has resigned, according to officials. They confirmed today. Matthew Banks was appointed as the CEO in July of 2022. He served as the CEO for 4 years at Merit Health Weasley in Hattiesburg, Mississippi, before his time at Crestwood. Officials did not say why Banks resigned, but they did provide a statement to 48 News. The statement was, Matthew Banks has stepped down from his role as Chief Executive Officer of Crestwood Medical Center and is no longer with the organization. We appreciate Matthew's dedication and contributions to the organization. Officials say recruitment efforts will begin as soon as they select a new CEO. But that is a breaking news story right there. It just came in. But yes, now in Albertville, where Nick also brought us a story yesterday on the housing ordinance out there. Many community members in Albertville packed the city council meeting held last night to voice their concerns and or support of a housing ordinance that could directly impact Haitian migrants. Nick Ballinger with more.
People in Albertville tell me this ordinance has been in place but hasn't been enforced.
It restricts the amount of people who can live in a single-family home. For example, for a 2-bedroom home, it's illegal to have more than 4 adults living there. We were the first to report on Haitian migrants living in Athens and Albertville and being bused to the Pilgrim's Pride plant in Russellville for work. The migrants are here on federal work visas, making them here legally. But community members in both Athens and Albertville have voiced their concerns. Now, a group of people in Albertville want the city to enforce a housing ordinance. Residents in Albertville tell me the ordinance has been in place for years, but hasn't been enforced. It limits the amount of people who can live in a home community. Members say if the ordinance is enforced now, it's only being used to target the migrants.
And so what we know about our migrant community, not all of them, but some of them have to live together for survival because they have just arrived in a new country. They are here to work and to make a better life for their families. And sometimes that means they have to live together for a little bit.
Both the council and police say they will continue to enforce the law, quote, fairly.
Well, thanks again, Nick. And staying in Albertville, as a new innovation academy opened its doors yesterday. 48 Savannah Sapp with the tour of the new facility.
You know, we've got a lot of college-bound kids here, and we've got a lot of kids that are going to be workforce ready.
That's the goal for Albertville City Schools' new Innovation Academy, which officially welcomes students this school year. The new magnet school is designed for students in dual enrollment, Albertville's virtual academy, and those in career-focused courses.
Additive manufacturing, precision machining, and also welding. We've got teaching and training. We've got health science.
Principal Tyler Reeves says some of these pathways were offered at the high school, but increased interest and enrollment encouraged school leaders to add more. Currently, Reeves says just under 300 students are enrolled in career courses at the Innovation Academy. Superintendent Bart Reeves says students at the academy spend their day on a block system, which means extra time in their prospective careers.
Now, in the magnet school, for our kids that are enrolled in the magnet school, now they've got up to 90 minutes to perfect their craft. And that's one of the advantages in my eyes.
But most of all, Reeves says with a variety of courses in both dual enrollment and career tech, all students will be well prepared to step out into the world.
You know, do I want to start working in a career first? Do I want to go straight to college? We're going to prep our students and let them decide, you know, that best pathway for them.
Well, thank you, Savannah. In sports, this week, the North Alabama Lions are heading down to Montgomery to face off against the Southeast Missouri State Redhawks for the 10th annual FCS kickoff game at the Crampton Bowl this Saturday. WSFA with the details.
College football returns this week. It kicks off in Montgomery. The 10th annual FCS kickoff game at Crampton Bowl will have all eyes on Montgomery. Johnny Williams, executive director of the FCS Kickoff and Camellia Bowl, says this is great exposure for the community.
It's the first game that day that ESPN is going to broadcast. Every sports bar and restaurant in the United States that has TVs up has ESPN on. Do we all agree with that? So there's a lot of people from Seattle to Sarasota who could be watching the football game in Montgomery. So great exposure for our community.
North Alabama will play in the FCS kickoff for the second straight year, while Southeast Missouri State will make its first appearance. Williams says his team has been working hard to welcome the teams and fans.
A lot of improvements around the stadium. Everybody's involved. Our city does a wonderful job of putting out and rolling out the carpet.
He encourages everyone to come catch the game Saturday.
And what better way to such great family entertainment? You know, football is such great, you know, got the bands and cheerleaders and, you know, it's such a great atmosphere.
The game kicks off at 6 Saturday night. You can find details about parking and tickets on WSFA.com. Rosanna Smith, WSFA 12 News.
Yes, football season, it's finally back. Let's go and go Lions. Super cool game there. Now, let's talk for a second about another one of my favorite things, which is, of course, music. Next month, September, is Huntsville Music Month. And today, Mayor Tommy Battle, along with Huntsville Music Director Matt Mandrella, announced the details of what we can expect to hear during the month of September. Take a listen.
Huntsville, setting the tone. We are approaching music and our music growth unlike any other city in the country, and I think that's something we should be really proud of. And who all agrees that it's a really, really exciting time for music here in Huntsville? All right, and we are here to talk about, this is going to be the third Huntsville Music Month. The Honorable Mayor Battle proclaimed Music Month in September a couple years ago, and this is the official celebration of all things Huntsville music, from performance on stage to behind the scenes and all things. It's a way for us to really, really showcase and be intentional about just showing off how dynamic and awesome and diverse our entire music culture is in Huntsville, and excited to share kind of like some of the events that we have planned. Now, first of all, I want to encourage everybody to go to huntsvillemusic.com. That's where you can see the full calendar. We are going to have over 120 Music Month events on the calendar in September. Let's say that again, 120 live music events in 1 month here in Huntsville. It's pretty awesome, right?
Yes, and that duo that you heard at the beginning of the video, they are Luna Koi, Lunakoi, if you were curious, but very talented duo right there. And they're right here in Huntsville. But yeah, Matt Mandrella there. Huntsville Music Month will certainly be something you're just not going to want to miss. And speaking of things you're just not going to want to miss, let's head into our stories you're just not going to want to miss in our evening newscast. A story on the Madison County Sheriff's Office hosting a mental health conference. Get the details of that story tonight in our evening newscast. Other stories you're just not going to want to miss: a new procedure doctors are using to increase colon cancer survival by 40%. And the latest on the ships currently docked at Ditto Landing. I'm telling you, these ships are super cool. They're modeled after the ones Christopher Columbus and his crew used, and it is certainly going to be a story you're just not going to want to miss in our evening newscast. Now, let's pull up Facebook Fun. It is that time, and our question of the day, as I said earlier, was what is the best quality that someone can have? There's a lot out there. I gotta say, mine are probably the ones that I think maybe honesty and integrity. That's what I think are some of the best qualities. Hardworking is certainly up there as well. But let's see what you all had to say. Miranda said honesty or creativity, two very good qualities there. Miranda, thank you so much for commenting. Tony said integrity. Gotta agree with you on that. Certainly integrity, yes, absolutely. That is one of the best qualities you can have, certainly. Thank you, Tony. And Angie said a kind heart. Certainly a kind heart. Just kindness, it really does go a long way. Angie, thank you so much for commenting. And that just about does it for today's Before the Four. I want to thank you all for watching and sticking around, spending a little bit of your Tuesday afternoon with me here on Before the Four. If you haven't done so already, make sure you download the 48 digital app, the 48 Sports Zone app. It is game week. So if you are a fan of any of the local teams here in the Tennessee Valley, high school football teams, make sure you download the 48 Sports Zone app, and all the content, the local content you're going to want to see will be right there on the Sports Zone app. You can get it on the App Store, you can get it on Google Play, wherever you get your apps, 48 Sports Zone, and also the 48 Weather app, of course. And you're not going to want to miss the forecast tonight from Brad Travis to see how the weather will pan out this week, but also the WAFF 48 First Alert Weather app. You're going to want to get it, turn on those push notifications, and you will never be left in the shadows when it comes to the weather. But that is it for today's Before the Four. I want to thank you once again for watching, and you all have a great night. And of course, thanks for watching. You all have a great night.